If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from okay to very high. Know your sleep score with Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
Start your day with Quaker Protein Instant Oatmeal. The instant oatmeal ready to help you tackle whatever your day brings. Like wrangling your toddler into their car seat. That was fun. Coaching your 6th graders soccer team. Go girls! And carrying all the groceries in one trip. Whew. Try Quaker Protein Instant Oatmeal, granola, and bars. Great taste and a good source of protein. Quaker, bring out the good.
This kid team was one of the toughest teams I've been around. They practiced harder than I've ever had any team practice. We talked about snatch. We had the best snatching team I've ever had. I don't know, maybe that's a correlation or not. I think it is. This is a list that they all hate, and they all bought into it, and you practice the same way.
This is the Turnaround Series presented by the Coach and Coordinator Network. At the Coach and Coordinator Network, we're connecting coaches to the ideas, systems, and resources that help programs improve. You'll hear about 2 of those platforms today, and both can be instrumental in turning your program around. Because when you're building a program, hard work matters, but so do the right ideas, the right plan, and access to coaches who have done it before. That is what this series is built to deliver. Hosted by Michael Echaves, the Turnaround Series breaks down the leadership, culture, and football decisions that drive real change inside a program. Let's get into it.
LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't predict the future, but it can help you feel confident about future hires. Because Hiring Pro combines real-time insights and candidate data from the LinkedIn network with the criteria you've set for your role to deliver you a list of top-fit candidates. Businesses who use LinkedIn are 24% less likely to reopen a role in the next 12 months. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
All right. Today, we're excited to have Coach Jeff Bailey on the Turnaround Podcast. My name is Michael Echaves. I'm the head football coach at Troy High School in Southern California, and I'm graced with the privilege of hosting the series through the Coach and Coordinator Podcast. Coach Bailey has led 2 amazing turnarounds. First, at Dorado High School, Coach Bailey inherited a struggling program and led them to a CIF championship within 3 years of taking the helm. In 2008, Coach was hired to build a brand new football program, the Yorba Linda Mustangs. As such, he went on to build Yorba Linda into a powerhouse, wherein he won 10 league championships, 2 CIF titles, and ushered his team into the highest public school league in Orange County, the vaunted Alpha League. Coach Bailey, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you for joining us.
I appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Well, Coach, let's get started right away with El Dorado. And the first question I have for you is, what was the overall culture and mindset of the team when you arrived to that team?
Well, the time I was at Esperanza, I thought El Dorado had tremendous potential. Didn't work out at Esperanza, so moved over there as a coordinator and started working with Coach Wolf. And then it was one of my favorite years. Opportunity to do whatever you want. Kids just loved it. They really took to the philosophies and our coaching hard and everything like that. So it was a cool year. We didn't make the playoffs. We were 5-5, but it was an exciting year.
So, Coach, you mentioned that stuff didn't work out at Esperanza, and I think it's important for our coaches to know, especially taking over a first-year program, was that kind of the goal? Was El Dorado the goal, or was it kind of like, hey, there's an opportunity, I want to go cut my teeth, I want to see what I could do? How did that work out for you?
I went for the job and didn't get it.
Yeah.
So I'm out of here. But Coach Wolf and I were friends before, and kind of like the cool, start work for him. And after a year, he decided he didn't want to do it anymore, so he kind of switched those.
That's great.
I had to get my head coaching job by default.
What changes, Coach, did you make to player development when you come in? I know that the weight room is critical to what you do as a coach. What was it like introducing the way that you run the weight room to the El Dorado football team, and how much of an impact did that make on the mentality, the culture, everything?
Well, back then, El Dorado, we had an outside weight room. There was 4 chain link fences, and I kind of came in with a philosophy that's similar to Esperanza, just 2.5 hours in a weight room. I just pounded, and then started to realize that we had great kids, but just we need to create more skill, more athleticism. So I actually went to playing at USC, Chris Carlick, and kind of got the basic foundation, 45 minutes on the field and 15 in the weight room. It's adjusted for years, but create an athlete more than just a strong player. So that's kind of where we cut our teeth on kind of where we're at now. So, but we're big on Olympic lifting. Mike Bergner, my lifting certification there. Spent a weekend with a PVC pipe in a bar, and I couldn't move for about a week. But I learned the techniques there, but it was it was crazy lifting outside. If it rained, we were screwed. But the kids worked hard, and they had to bring everything in and out every day. But still, we got it done.
Now, do you feel like, Coach, I assume probably in the actual like development of the building of the Yorba Linda weight room, so like inheriting the El Dorado weight room, was your mentality like, I don't care what it looks like, I don't care what the resources are, we're just going to make it work? I mean, you kind of just rolled your sleeves up and went after it?
Yeah, it just chipped away at it. Obviously funding is always an issue wherever you go. So we actually had some great bumpers. We had Maverick plates and Zhaojing plates and Rico and Chapman bars. One of my coaches still calls them Chapman bars or Olympic bars. It's kind of funny. We're not Chapman bars. But, we adjusted to just having mats out there because we had like platforms that the weather just killing. So, yeah, we just got her down. We just kept adjusting and chipping away at it till, it just works.
Well, that's awesome. And were you guys at that time, was the clean and the snatch as critical to your development as it is now? Or were you guys in the foundational phases of that? What would you say?
Oh, they fought it big time.
Oh, I love it.
So, one of my coaches actually, Coach Doman's going to take over. He was the worst. He loved doing curls, but he was an awesome player for us.
You mean he fought you? He fought you on the culture?
Those guys drove me nuts, but they were really good football players back then, 06, 07, and you had to watch them like a hawk. We had one of my buddies was our deep coordinator, Aaron Acton, and every rep, every set on the board, made sure they did it.
Wow. That's awesome. Next question, Coach. How did you approach recruiting talent when the program had a losing history? Especially, I think, if I'm correct, like Esperanza was at its height, and you went to this school that was a couple miles away and said, hey, I'm going to cut my teeth here. And then within 3 years, you guys are just knocking down the doors, Like, how did you do that? How did you attract talent, or did you feel like it was already there and you just needed to cultivate it?
They had the talent there. It just had them start playing football. We started having success, and the kids got into it and attracted the kids and the other sport kids. And yeah, just never been a recruiter guy. Just work hard, and sometimes they come out, and sometimes they show up. So.
And now, did you guys at this time, did you start to tap into the youth? I know that the youth is such a critical part to your guys' program development. Have you guys, at this point at El Dorado, were you guys able to tap into that? Or was it kind of like literally, like you said, finding the guys in the hallways, finding guys that are playing other sports and say, hey, come out and play football for us?
Yeah, we didn't start doing youth stuff till Yorba Linda. Yeah, it was just, there's 2,600 kids. I mean, there's a lot of kids on campus. They had good kids, really good kids. And they're kicking butt in baseball and basketball and all the sports. So we shared athletes, and all got a lot better.
Yeah, along that, Coach. So I know, obviously, growing up in Fullerton and, adjacent city to Placentia, I know how strong El Dorado has been in basketball and baseball, and traditionally not known as a big-time football school. Did you have to convince the basketball coach and the baseball coaches to like, hey, let me, share some of your athletes, or did you just kind of create the program that was attracting those players over to it? How did you navigate that?
Yeah, I'll be honest, they fought it back then. They didn't want to share, but the kids saw what was going on and wanted to play. And I've always been, hey, we'll share athletes, and we get them to do creative things and lift different times that kind of make it work. So, and especially now, our district built another school and everybody's smaller. to survive, you do share athletes. And I was a baseball, football guy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Coach, I know a near and dear part to your program development is your coaching staff. And what kind of role did your coaching staff play in the turnaround at El Dorado? Speak to us about that, please.
Well, I went to Fulton High School, and two of my best friends also were coaches. Richie Burrell, who is probably one of the best coaches that ever lived. He's awesome. And then Aaron Acton and myself. We all came as a package deal, working with Coach Wolf, and they're just tremendous coaches. So I have my best friends coach with me. Then as we progress, former players, things like that. So it's hard because people don't realize as a head coach, if you hire the wrong person, you got to let him go, and that's not fun. So
those coaches, Coach Burrell, and I think you said Coach Atkins,
Acton,
were they teachers as well?
Coach Acton, Aaron Acton he's a junior high PE teacher. Coach Burrell is not. But Coach Burrell's still coaching at Yorba Linda. He's been doing it for years, kind of on and off. His son's going to be a senior this year. So he's been one of the key guys of my success over the years. So he's an incredible coach.
That's so amazing, Coach. I think that's head coaches, that are trying to build something bigger than ourselves. We realize that you need great people around you. You need to have two of your best friends, man. That sounds like an awesome deal.
Well, it's all my staffs. We've always had fun. Our Sunday, we like to meet on Sundays for game weeks, and we have a blast. We scout together. It's just always a good time to be around each other, and because you spend so much time. So you got to fit in.
Yeah, I hear you. Coach, you go 5-1 your first year, and then you go 6-5 your second year. It's not like this screaming change from that 5-5 season you had as your first year coordinating. How did you convince the guys like, hey, we're on the right path? Because obviously you guys kept on it and then went 13-1 that next year and won a championship and then followed it up with another. How did you navigate that time where it wasn't like you took over and then it immediately skyrocketed? It was a steady build. How'd you navigate that?
Well, 2005 season, we started out 0-3. We just had some really tough losses. And, Valencia was just a tough overtime loss. And I think we lost on a Hail Mary, so we were in all these games and we were young too. We had a ton of juniors starting, and then we kind of made a run. And I think we were co-league champs that year. And I can't remember. I think we beat El Toro in the first round and played La Habra. No, I'm sorry. We lost the first round that year to Newport Hart. And they were eventual champions and moved up to the higher division and everything. But we had them beat. We had our only holding call was on our winning touchdown, and they beat us in overtime. But the potential was there. I mean, we were returning almost our whole defense and some good players coming back. And I thought the next year we were going to be really good. And obviously did. We 13-1 and got champions that year, which was an awesome deal.
So, Coach, do you specifically, I know I've been around you and your players, and I've seen the way you guys interact, and there is a tremendous respect from both ends. I remember one of your studs when I went and watched your lift 3 years ago, one of your studs, I think you had said, hey, Coach, you're showing me your workout book. You're like, this is like it. And the kid walks over and looks at it and goes, Coach, are you talking about the Bible? And, you started laughing, the kids started laughing, and the kids obviously buy into that. Did you see the way that you move that, 6-6 team, did you have these conversations with them? Like, hey guys, I believe in you. I think we're right around the corner. I think we're going to do something. Or did you just kind of say, hey, put your head down, let's go to work? Which approach did you take?
Funny story. We kind of switched our summers too. I used to lose sleep over those last 3 weeks, taking off your dead period right before the season. That was the traditional way. And we moved it to the beginning, and it was a rough start. We worked really hard that summer. And one of our players whose dad is one of our coaches, he's now a athletic director at Cal. He's the greatest kid. But I remember hearing him going, we better win because this summer sucked. So, but yeah, it kind of builds culture, it builds kind of work ethic and mental toughness. And the bodies are ready to go. And we've kind of taken that same, although our summers are really hard, balanced throughout.
Coach, I think that's one thing that you've done that's what's special about your programs. And I guess I'm going to be very upfront with this. The perception of the El Dorado, the perception in the Yorba Linda community is that it's a little more entitled. It's a little more, again, this is perception, not reality. But the way that you guys have always structured your program, it is so blue collar and so hard and so challenging that there's just kind of like when you play a Yorba Linda, and I imagine I didn't play those El Dorado teams, you just see kids that are just like, man, I just want to line up and play football. No frill, no bedazzle, just like, let's go. And I think that's one of the special things you've done with your programs.
They're all great kids. It's been such a pleasure working in this community over the years. These kids are awesome. They work hard. They've always worked hard. You challenge them and they respond. There's been years that, you go, hey, they're a little sore. And it's like, no, we're bringing them up to us. We're not going down to that, so they always respond every time. And it's been awesome. It's, nowadays I don't even have to put things on the board. They just work hard, and there's a hierarchy in our weight room, and they all want to be on the boards and get their shirts and challenge each other. And so I've never seen it over the years. The parents have been awesome. The kids have been awesome. I couldn't have been luckier to be around it.
That's so awesome, Coach. So let's talk about sustaining that success at El Dorado before we move on to Yorba Linda. So you go 13-1, you win a CIF title. Obviously, the expectation is like, all right, we've arrived, let's be done. How did you, in the process of turning that program around, take it to yet another level and go on and win a second title? What was the approach you guys took after that season?
It's interesting. We had a lot of kids coming back. There's a ton of potential, but repeating is tough, obviously. And a couple of kids actually said, Coach, are you not going to coach as hard this year, man? Because I've already done it. And it's almost like the kids challenged me. I still remember that day, like, no, we're going. And they were a special group also, and just kept working hard. And it became like a mentality that we're going to go out there and battle and win. So that year was incredible. We had some last minute win. I think we beat Beverly Hills in the finals in the last 25 seconds. We beat South Hills in overtime. So they played, let's think, to the other team. We had some tough games that year. It was a special season again and was incredible. In fact, Coach Delman, who's one of my main coaches over the last few years, is going to take over at Yorba Linda. That was his junior and senior year. So he knows how to win.
Oh, that's awesome. So you go into the next year, you go 6-6. And, I guess this will kind of take us into your mentality. Were you thinking at this time, like, hey, like I want to stay at El Dorado and I want to build? Or did you feel like, I'm ready for a new challenge? Obviously, it is a very rare opportunity to open up a school. How did that come about? Were you longing for another challenge, another turnaround, or were you ready to take El Dorado on to the next level?
I'll be honest with you, I never even thought about it. So one of the coaches thought he was going to be the AD and kind of recruited me, made me start thinking about it. And then, really looked into it, and intriguing to not have to take a bus to a home game, having your own stadium, and trying to get more coaches. And I had a hard time getting teachers hired as coaches there too. He never even become the AD, and I ended up going. It's kind of funny. So I told my daughter, you're not going to El Dorado, you're going to Yorba Linda with me. She cried for 2 weeks, and I felt so bad. And then she got into the registration. She goes, Dad, I'm more excited. So she ended up having an awesome time there.
Oh, that's awesome. So, Coach, let's now transition to that takeover. And again, I think it's very rare for a coach to take over a brand new school. I guess what insight can you give to somebody that, again, rare opportunity, gets that chance to take over a program? What would you tell them? Like, did you have input on the way that the fields were built, the way that the weight room was constructed, the locker room, any of that stuff? Or did you just like, hey, we're just going to go build a football program?
Well, the weight room is functional for what we want. It's, it hasn't changed since. I had a good opportunity with that. Been in education. There's only some things you have to say in, or some things are really frustrating, So my classroom ended up being our team room, coach's room, lunchroom. And we didn't have an office like Esperanza did and El Dorado did. So but we've made it work over the years, and it's been very rewarding, yes.
At the Coaching Coordinator Network, we spend a lot of time talking about what it really takes to turn a program around. Usually it starts with a system your kids can believe in, your staff can teach, and your program can hang its hat on. That's exactly why we want to tell you about the Slot T Mafia with Paul Kilby. The Slot T is not about trick plays or nostalgia. It's about a physical, structured offense built to help coaches take control of the game, play fast, and give their players clear answers. If you're stepping into a rebuild, taking over a struggling program, or looking for an identity that fits real high school rosters, this is worth your attention. Inside the Slot T Mafia community, you get detailed courses, practice film, rules by position, play cut-ups, weekly office hours, monthly live Q&A, and direct access to a community of coaches building the offense the right way. If you want an offense that can help you create toughness, confidence, and an identity in your program, go check it out at slott.com. That's slot-t.com.
So, Coach, now let's deep dive into Yorba Linda. What was your first steps to start to establish your guys' selves in regards to the foundation that you built? What was it made up of?
There's a lot of weird stuff and fun stuff and frustrating stuff. But I remember we took some kids from El Dorado, some kids from Yorba Linda. We're going to be freshmen and sophomores. We're going to do a spring ball, and they're going to take buses. And I'm like, don't be short buses. Don't.
Wow.
But we went to Maple Pane and met there and kicked into a tree and we started there for probably almost a year and then got a field on campus while they're building the stadium. And then we had a JV freelance schedule, freshman schedule. My poor freshman coaches, we did a freshman game and a B game. They were all over Southern California. I was a poor guy, freaking flyer miles. And, we played a lot of sophomore teams, Mission and San Clemente's JV reserves. I mean, we played San Clemente. They beat us so bad, we had to get a rain out the next week. I was supposed to play Bob Johnson's JV reserves, and there was like 9 kids I never saw again after that other game, man. They beat us up pretty good. So I asked Bob for a rain out, but it was fun. It was exciting. I actually coached my son's Pop Warner team that year, so I was doing triple days. It was,
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's crazy. So you go on, and I think the first season I have you guys at is 4-6. I think it was 2010 was that inaugural season. And then
yeah, so we didn't have seniors that year.
Okay. So that was the juniors and sophomores playing a varsity schedule.
Yeah, and they threw us in the Empire League playing Tustin and some of those. But we called it smoke and mirrors, man. We were almost in every game. Like, we never lost the kids all year. We had a few cool wins and tough losses, and thought the kids really responded.
Wow. So then, Coach, you guys go 10-2 the very next season. How in the world did that happen?
Yeah, we had our seniors were, starters since their sophomore year in the system. We got some good kids and very competitive. Co-league chance. I think we beat Tustin that year. It was a tremendous win at Tustin. And then tough loss to Cypress over a 3-way tie. First playoff game in the school's history against Troy High School.
That's right. You guys beat us, right?
We were able to beat them, but I think we lost almost all our receivers in that game. Had to play El Toro, and they had a good group that year, and they just beat us up pretty good.
I'm pretty sure Jim says that you guys stopped us on like the goal line, right?
Yeah, it was a crazy game. Yeah.
So awesome. Jim is gonna love that.
I was like, I thought for sure we were losing that game.
That's awesome. So 10-2, Coach, and you talked about, the guys being familiar with your system. How critical is the systems that you guys run offensively, defensively, special teams to your success overall? Tell me the way that it works for you guys.
Well, we've always been a 4-4 team, run a 40 defense. It's very adaptive to most offenses. You can, cover 2, cover 3, and blitz and all that kind of stuff. We've always been a 40 team. I've always tried to be as sound on special teams as possible. We adapt more on offense. That first few years we milked the clock. We would run at the quarter. I think we got 2 more seconds, try not to get a penalty. But we've had adapt year. We've run the split back year. Our first 10-0 year, we were split back there. 13-14, I believe.
No way.
2013 and 14. Yeah, we played, we were 10-0. Tremendous year. I mean, it was fun. We've run a beer in the past, not exclusively, but sat down with Coach Peterson, who just taking over Olu, came from Air Force. And we clinicked with him a couple times, and it was neat. It helped us out a lot. We had a tremendous quarterback that year who ran it really well, and it was fun, man. Then we had to play Huntington Beach in the first round, and we were the number 2 seed, and had to play the 5th place Sunset League team because they moved the Sunset in our division, and they beat us and won the championship. Like, yeah, it was that was a head scratcher on them being in our division.
Yeah. So the split back veer, I mean, I know you guys, from my understanding, have always been kind of like a single back zone gap team, great play action, power pass, boot pass. Obviously, you have like your standard quick game. So, did split back veer, did you guys do that because you had a specific talent that year, or were you guys undersized? What was it?
Well, like you said, we've always had veers in our package, but our quarterback he was an athlete, wasn't a good thrower. I mean, he was okay, but not spectacular. And our line was really little. So we thought this might be perfect to be more exclusive into that, try to adapt to your talent. We had, some solid running backs and those superstars, but they were all great in that system.
Coach, that's awesome. And I think that's really important for our listeners to glean into, because listeners, if you were to see the Yorba Linda team now, they are some big kids and physical, and I would say overall undersized for maybe the Alpha or the Bravo a little bit, but still big and physical, and you guys run the ball. But to hear you guys making those adjustments kind of speaks to your guys', just your excellence in your knowledge and coaching, and the way that you guys went out and learned. And I imagine maybe got a little bit uncomfortable, in that process. I think that's critical for coaches in the process of building a great program.
Yeah, it was fun, actually. I enjoyed running it. We've always been a zone power team. Try to be balanced, try to be, physical, but also, stay balanced and have a quick attack and screens and just be a variety of offense. But that year, man, we were getting after it.
I love that. Coach, are there, in the process of building at Yorba Linda, was there any specific leadership or cultural things that you did that you feel like were game changers for you, that really maybe accelerated the development or took it to the next level? You kind of mentioned hierarchy in the weight room. Can you speak to any of that?
Well, we've always got this from our high school, Florida high school, because I am an Indian. Well, not an Indian anymore, I guess. I guess they changed their name. But we had squad leaders. So, and then with the squad leader, we used to have line leaders, 8 to 10, depending on our numbers, and then assistant squad leaders. So they're kind of liaison between the coaches and the team, and demand them to, help us in the process of, who's there, not going to be there, and leading, and just trying to build those leaders. But I really think the weight room is huge in that. They become a team. They're together so long, and through the off season and through the summer, and just it kind of builds that mental toughness and character and team that, brings them together. But I think the squad leaders is a big part of their developing the leaders too.
Yeah. Coach, let's talk about the dip you had in success on the field. Not to say you didn't have it off it, but I think it was like the 14-15 seasons.
Yeah. We started spring ball as a CF championship team, and between transfers and injuries, and I think we played at one point 12 sophomores starting that year.
But you had the expectation to be a CF champion team that year.
We were loaded in spring, but it was crazy. Just bad luck, bad timing. Everything was just, I remember telling like the JV guys, hey, we can't play so-and-so. We need him tomorrow night. We just had an injury in Watford or something crazy.
Wow.
But that group, though, their senior year won a CF championship. So it was a building block.
Now, how did you navigate that personally, Coach? Was that a challenge for you going through that season? Because I know you've had so much success. Was that a moment where you had to do some self-reflection, or were you just like, you know what, this is just a really tough year. We just got to stay positive and get through it? How'd you handle it personally?
It is hard losing. It's a pride deal, but you do have to stay positive. You try and look for the positives. You try and, it's obviously try not to lose the kids, So, people, when I was in high school, we lost, we'd have a full padded Saturday practice. So obviously we're not doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're trying to build on things and get better each time. And yeah, those are a couple of tough years, but they helped us to kind of build where we're at today. So
yeah, and I think that's again, critical to that is that you had those tough years, but at the end of it, you had that CIF championship. And I think those guys getting battle tested as sophomores, taking their licks, man, really just paid off.
Yeah, my son was part of that class, and his sophomore year, the freshman quarterback was our starting strong safety. So I go, "Hey, son, you're gonna be the quarterback on JVs that year." So yeah, he got beat up pretty good, but he sucked it up and got it done.
Oh, that's awesome. And then coach, from like that year on, like you guys have just done nothing but win. Like it's been crazy. And I think what's been crazier is you guys have ascended leagues. You know, you started, I think you guys were in Empire, right? Before you hit Bravo?
Yeah, we're in the starting the Empire League, then moved to the Century League,
Oh, that's right.
and then they made the Century Conference, which was like Crestview and North Hills. So we've been in the Crestview forever.
Yeah.
And then when they decided on this offer, bro, whatever, we ended up in the battle.
Yeah. And then
Every time there's competitive equity, you're the one to get screwed.
so, but to speak to that though, coach, you go into the Bravo League and then you guys proceed to go. Did you guys go 9-4 that year to the semis?
Our first year, yeah, in 22 we were CF champions. So, and then 23, I think that was, well, I was still in Crestview. I think we went to the semifinals and lost to CDN. So we've had some battles with CDN in the semifinals a couple of years in a row. And then our first year in the Broad, we end up in the same league as CDM and San Juan Hills and those guys. And I'll be honest, I thought we were going to be a 5-5 team. But this team was one of the toughest teams I've been around. They practiced harder than I've ever had any team practice. You know, we talked about snatch. We had the best snatching team I've ever had. I don't know, maybe it's a correlation or not.
Yeah.
I think it is. This is a list they all hate, and we all bought into it, and they practiced the same way. And we beat Sarah Gardena that year. It was one of the coolest wins we've ever had. And went out to Newberry Park, and we were right there at the end, and they got us.
Yeah, coach, speak to that transition into Bravo because, you know, like I played you guys, Troy played you guys when I first got to Troy in like 16, 17, and you guys were solid, but you guys were not a Bravo team, you know, but you just leveled your way up into that league. And like you said, you had those expectations that were modest, 5-5. And then next thing you know, I just remember watching you guys. And I remember I talked to you that offseason. You're like, yeah, I think it's going to be rough. Like, I just don't think we can do it. And then you guys go out and do it. How? Like, do you really think it was a snatch, or did you guys take strategic moves, or do you think it was the expectations of everybody in the program that wanted to play at that level? What do you think it was?
You know, I think it helps with our youth. Kids came in and they're youth lifting for the last probably 11, 12 years. That's helped in the process. Kids are seeing what's going on at Yorba Linda. So you attracted some kids that way. But, you know, the kids work hard, man. And we're kind of do something different than everybody else. You know, RPO is run power often. But, you know, it's not the 1 year, every week is the same offense. And they're having to replicate our offense, which is something they don't do, which helps out. No one runs the defense they run all year. They run something different. That's what we're doing. I think that's helped a lot in that process.
I love that, coach. That's similar to our philosophy at Troy. Like, obviously, we're the wing, and so it's different from the pro style, but still power run and getting after it. And it has been an absolute equalizer. You know, as you head into games, it's been one thing that we could be like, all right, we just know that they haven't been able to replicate what we can do. And that's critical.
But, you know, I've had obviously great receivers. Over the years, people always said I'd rather have a skilled lineman. And, you know, in the 19, we had just a tremendous line. We had 4 Division I guys and, you know, guys up at Boise and everything. And we were a solid team and lost to St. Paul and, you know, lost a couple tight ends, which hurt us. But in the years past, we didn't have the big old kids. We just had, I mean, in a 23 year, I think we had a 5'8", 5'9", and 5'10" line.
Wow.
You know, they're tough kids and strong, but everybody else looked a lot bigger than us.
That's so awesome. So, coach, 2 things as we kind of get to the conclusion here. Number one, obviously, our listeners will find out if they research you because you made national news and moving to Beverly Hills. What is, you think, that the critical thing that you're going to take, the greatest lesson you've learned in all your rebuilds? What are you going to take over there, and what's going to be the one thing you hang your hat on?
Well, starting it here in a month, obviously, we're going to try and get the right frame of mind and structure and discipline, hard work ethic, and try and build it from scratch again also. So I think the kids are excited. I'm excited about some of the coaches I'm going to have with me, and it's going to be a different animal, but I think it's going to be exciting.
That's awesome. And then, Coach, taking over a program is extremely hard, and most coaches aren't blessed with taking over a successful program. They're usually taking over a struggling program. That's why the job came open. What would you tell an aspiring coach as he's taking over a program? Like, hey, here's something you can take with you in this turnaround process. What would you say to that coach?
Well, like El Dorado, there's some tradition you have to embrace. Obviously, you have to bring your own philosophy in there, but you also have to embrace some of the traditions there. El Dorado, I mean, Yorba Linda we started from scratch, so we could do everything our own. But there's got to be a happy medium there. Some things that you got to say, hey, this is the way I'm going to do it. This is important to me. And some are, you know what, I don't want to, step on the school's traditional stuff they got going also. But obviously, your work ethic and your philosophies that you want to feel strongly about need to be embraced and just keep battling at it. I always say Rome's not built in a day. There's a patience involved there too.
Yeah, Coach, I love that. I think, honestly, we've modeled our program after Yorba Linda. Like, we've sat there and we said, okay, like, if Yorba Linda could do it, let's try to build in their mold. And you've been an inspiration because you guys do it the right way. Like, we rarely get transfers. We have to build from the ground up. Our offensive line was 5'8", 207 pounds last year average. And we just love getting after it. And we owe it to kind of the mentality that we saw in the weight room that you guys showed us in, I don't know, what, 2021 or something like that. And just forever grateful for it, forever grateful for your mentorship. And I'm so excited to see what you do at Beverly Hills, not Redondo. And we're going to pay close attention to it, Coach. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, man. I do get to build another weight room, which I'm excited about.
That's awesome.
Spend other people's money. It's always fun.
That's awesome, Coach.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Turnaround Series presented by the Coach and Coordinator Network. At the Coach and Coordinator Network, we're committed to connecting you with coaches, systems, and ideas that help you build your program the right way. If this episode hit for you, take the next step. Dive into the platforms we mentioned today and continue learning from coaches who have been through it and built it. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next episode. We'll keep bringing you real conversations and real solutions for coaches working to turn programs around. Follow all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com and follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.